Well, thank you so much. And this is actually a great transition because the next presentation is going to be from a company that both myself and Ms. Sullivan are big fans of. When we talk about assistive technology, sometimes, there's a lot of stuff out there, but the next company that we're going to have present, which is Sonocent.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I
yeah.
always say this, if I was a professional golfer, I would probably be wearing Sonocent hats and T-shirts, and they'd be my main sponsor. I've got personal experience with their actual original software that they're promoting, but this one, Glean, is very promising. So I can't wait to hear what they have to provide. And so, yeah, so we're great to have Miss Megan Barrett and Miss Isabel Mick. I don't want to mess up your name, Isabel McCombie. I've given both of you guys the co-host rights, so I'll let you guys go ahead and take it over. Once again, thank you, Miss Sullivan. Uh,
Thank you.
happy birthday. What can I
Thank
say?
you.
All
Take
right.
care.
Okay. All right, Megan. It's on
Hi.
you.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to live up to that intro now. That was an absolutely glowing introduction. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to Miss Sullivan as well. I think that was such an incredible presentation and really sets the scene for why assistive technology is so important. But thank you all for joining us. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. So as was previously mentioned, I'm going to be presenting Glean to you. So Glean is by Sonocent. I see a few familiar names, so a few of you might be aware of who we are already. But just as a little introduction, my name's Megan. I've worked in the industry for around 2 years now. And my role here at Sonocent is really to help people overcome the challenges of note-taking, both from an administrator's perspective, so managing that accommodation and allowing students to get more value from the note-taking process with Glean. So today we're going to be covering where are traditional accommodations failing? So what are some of the challenges there? Why note-taking is an investment in students' learning in the long term, not just a short-term accommodation to meet the requirements of the law, and why is Glean the solution for many different types of institutions. So providing note-taking, providing note-taking accommodations is really challenging. So there are a few areas that we hear time and time again that institutions tell us it's really hard to provide this accommodation. So I wanted to cover a few of the ones that we hear most frequently. So note-taking accommodations are hard to administer. So we hear a lot from institutions that are maybe providing provided notes. So you might be using a peer note-taking system or another assistive technology that provides notes. This can be really difficult, especially if you're using a peer note-taking system, so where you're recruiting somebody else in the class to take the notes, because it's super hard to recruit students. They lead really busy lives. There's a lot of admin work involved in getting that student set up. And once you do get that student set up, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to provide consistent and reliable notes. They are a student themselves. We know a lot of students have very busy schedules. They may have to work as well as study. So this can often mean that they may not be able to turn notes in on time. Alongside that, poor notes and inconsistent notes really affect your students' ability to learn and achieve those outcomes that we really want them to achieve. But the most important one for us as a company, and what I really believe in, is that when you provide a student with the notes, we're not helping them build up their the strategies and skill sets that they're going to need for whether it's transitioning to higher education or whether it's transitioning to the professional environment. We're almost creating an environment of dependence. They're relying on somebody else to provide the notes for them. unfortunately, this is not going to be the case for them when they get into the professional world or in some HE institutions. They're going to have to learn how to do that for themselves. And so kind of looking at it from more of a student perspective, students really struggle to get the value from class because sometimes how they're taught in class isn't effective, especially if you have a barrier to learning. So note taking is super important, but what this often means to many students is they can't become an active participant in class, so they result to passive learning. So when I say an active participant, I mean the student is doing an incredible job of trying to write everything down that they possibly could because they really want to capture that class content. But what that means is they can't engage in the moment. So they're unable to ask the questions that they need to ask, be involved in group discussions, because that anxiety of missing something really rings true for a lot of students with barriers to learning. On the flip side of that, if a student decides to completely engage in class, so they don't want to take any notes, they're just trying to listen, focus, and ask all the questions they need to ask. As a result of that, they don't have many notes to go back to, and we can't remember everything. So this is where sustained concentration comes in as well. It can be a little tricky, especially for students. Many of your students, I imagine, come to you with barriers such as ADD or ADHD, which makes it really hard for them in the traditional learning setting and even online when classes can be 1 to 2 hours long to keep focus for that amount of time. I know it's something we can definitely all probably relate to when we've been in meetings and stuff. It is hard to try and focus on. I need to get all this information down. I also have to be listening, and it's such a substantial length of time. With the transition to online learning, this has only been exacerbated. We're now in an environment, especially for students, where they might be in noisy family homes, they might be in dorms or living with housemates. There's a whole multitude of distractions that they didn't really have to compete with before the pandemic. But I guess we've all kind of been guilty if you're sat watching a lecture or a meeting and a notification pops up on your phone. It's easy to kind of jump to that, and by the time you know it, you've lost focus, you've lost a lot of context from a lecture, and it could have been really important, which spikes anxiety. Now, given those challenges that we've kind of already addressed, note-taking itself is really time-consuming and quite difficult skill to master. Students do find this really difficult, but research suggests that if students do take notes and they review those notes, they have better learning outcomes. But what does this actually mean? So research has suggested that if you review a lecture recording or a class recording, it's going to help when it comes to exams, assignments, and that sort of thing. But for students with barriers to learning, it doesn't really feel like an equitable environment if we're asking them to sit through maybe 1 to 2 hour class, then review that again. It's going to take them a lot longer, and students often don't have the time to do that. On top of that, reviewing notes is super important, but we know that students with barriers to learning that get note-taking accommodations often struggle with executive functioning skills, so time management and organisation mainly. So if you're providing your students with peer notes, for example, they might have 3-4 pages of notes, which is really great. It's great that a student's provided that, but it often leaves them in a situation where it's overwhelming. They don't know where to start, they don't know how to organise them, so they're not getting the full value from the accommodation that they could be. Now, all of this has undoubtedly become a little bit more difficult with online learning. So online learning increases the tendency to passively learn. There's a lot more distractions, and in order to keep up, it's become a lot more difficult. However, the goals have remained the same for students. They still have to pass exams. They still have to build up those skill sets they need professionally. So our goals as people that support students shouldn't have changed. We need to adapt them to make them better. So that's why we think it's time to really shake up note-taking accommodations and just generally have a bit retrospective of what education's like now and how we can firstly change things and inspire students to be more independent. So I wanted to introduce you to Glean. So I'll be giving you a demonstration in a couple of seconds. So Glean is a platform that helps students get the most value from note-taking possible. So it helps them learn a really simple process and segments that information for them in an order that is really set up to help them when it comes to exams. So I will just get Glean up for you. So to say I work for a tech company, I'm not the greatest at transitioning through Zoom slides, so I do apologise. Oh, it's already opening another tab. I apologise. If you just give me 2 seconds, I'll try and find it. There we go. So what I'm going to be showing you is Glean the app. I know we discussed sort of the admin side of things and how that can be a huge blocker, both in schools and in higher education. When you purchase Glean as an institution, you also get what's called our admin portal. If you'd like to learn more about how our admin portal can really help you reduce that burden, look at student data to see how well they're doing and whether they're using their accommodations. We're going to be putting a link to get in contact with us post the presentation. So feel free to reach out to us and we're definitely more than happy to give you a demonstration of the admin portal, and we can also give you a demonstration of Glean itself as well for your team if you're interested. But let's get kick-started with the demo. So the first thing to note with Glean is it is a web-based application. So the benefits of this is that students can use Glean on any device at any time. I know we've recently seen with other softwares that if the student's device was at school and in the pandemic they couldn't access it, it meant that they were often left without an accommodation. Glean allows you to access it anywhere. Because it is an online tool, it doesn't necessarily mean you need internet connection. It works both online and offline. It will just sync to the cloud when you get internet connection again. So as an administrator, if you were inviting your student to Glean, they would get an email, create a unique password and sign up. This is the first thing your students will see. So it's a 2-minute, 20-second video, and it breaks down how to get started with using Glean. This is going to reduce the time you have to spend with students. So the majority of people we work with, their students just get set up with this video. It's really going to, reduce some of that time you have to spend training. So I'm going to run this as if I was a student, just to let you know as well, if you do have any questions, my colleague Isabel is on hand, so drop a question in the chat box and we can definitely go through some of those questions. So to get started, all you do is hit new event. You can see that it's quite a simplistic model, so it's both suitable for those students that are in K-12 and higher education. It's really important that we keep this simple because we want students to learn the process and build the skill. We don't want them to be overwhelmed by an abundance of features that might be really cool, but they're never going to use. The first thing I would suggest, if your students get PowerPoints or they might get readings or anything like that that can be put into a PDF format, if you get your students to import that into Glean, It's really going to help for those visual learners to be able to sync things up at the same time and follow along during class. We encourage all students to put a title for their event, so when they come back for an exam, you know what you're looking for. But then we have a couple of options. So Glean is a hybrid tool, so it can be used in person or online. And these are really simple. So essentially, if your students are doing asynchronous classes, which just means they're given a recording, all you have to do is select this top option. It just means, in kind of non-techie terms, that it's going to record from your speakers. So it's going to really reduce that background noise. If you're in a noisy family home, we want to reduce that as much as possible. If you're in an online setting like we are now, so a Zoom class, just select this bottom option here. So if you ask a question, that's going to be captured as well. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to pretend I'm in a normal class and hit record. So what you will see Glean start to do is automatically segment by the slide. So this is really helpful for students to break things down into bite-sized chunks. It's going to become a lot more manageable for them. We also have the visualization of the audio bars to help students follow along. So our goal is to make this as really simple as possible. We want students to be able to engage in class, so be an active participant in their own learning, whilst being able to capture that all important information and not be distracted. The way we do this is we have three tags down here: important, review, and task. So when a student hears something that they would normally deem to be noteworthy or something that spikes their interest, all you have to do is hit important. You can type a note if you'd like to, hit enter, and what that's done is it's put a tag in the audio capturing 15 seconds before and 15 seconds after, but it's also put a tag down the right hand side, and this is almost like a timeline, and I'll show you what that looks like after class. We also have review. So I think for me, this is one of the most important, especially when we consider the general population of students that have barriers to learning. A lot of those students really struggle with focus in class. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily something we can change, but we can support them with. So if your student notices that they've drifted out during class and they really start to panic, all you have to advise they do is hit review, maybe put a quick note, come back after class, and they can start to re-engage in the moment. So it reduces that anxiety because they know they've got a pinpoint. They know that when I come back after class, I can work out whether that information was important or not. My main priority right now is to try and catch myself back up, get myself back in the moment, and really engage with that class again. We also have task. So we know some of the challenges for students are that they want to write everything down, and that's great. It shows a real willingness to learn. But what that often means is when teachers or professors are telling them their assignment, they get halfway through writing a sentence, and because the professor doesn't go at the speed that's suitable for them, it means they miss the detail, but they don't also have the space to ask the questions. So what we advise is hit task, maybe put a quick note of homework, and you're able to sit back, listen, absorb the information and context, and ask those all important questions that are really going to aid you in completing the task that has been set by your teacher. Now for the slides, we've been told that professors don't go in chronological order. Apparently they like to jump around quite a lot. So we've given students the autonomy to move around with the professor. So all you have to do is skip through these slides, find the slide that the professor has jumped to, post that slide. As you can see, it's made a section break. Let's say they're all over the shop that day and they jump back to the slide. You can follow the exact same process. And what this means is when you come to review your notes, it's all going to align visually and with the audio as well. It's going to be a lot more simple. For those students that you know are a little bit more prone to distraction or really want to write everything down, I would advise that you show the students what's called lightning mode. So lightning mode reduces it to keyboard shortcuts. That way your students can just sit with their fingers on the keypad, hit the shortcut whenever they need to, and it's just removed some of that temptation for them. So that's the process in class. I think the most interesting part of Glean for students is what you can do after class. So as you can see, this is obviously a demonstration slide, so we don't expect your students to have so many, but it essentially creates a to-do list for your students. So we said that students often struggle with executive functioning, so organization and time management. They don't know where to start, and reviewing is probably the most important part about taking notes, and it's something that I think sometimes we forget to acknowledge. We're great at accommodating students in the classroom, but how do we help them digest that information? So with Glean, it is essentially a to-do list in chronological order. You work your way through them. So just to give you an example, if I click into any of these, it's going to take me to that exact point in the audio with the correlating lecture slide. From here, I could expand the note if I want. So this just opens up a text box and you can play and pause the information, the audio, sorry. What this does is it gives students bite-sized chunks to be able to add their own meaning to what they're hearing. We know from research that if you hear something and you put it into your own words, you're way more likely to recall it when it comes to exam times and assignments because you've added meaning to it, you've made it important to you. And this is what we want to aim for students to do. We don't want them to be given somebody else's thoughts and opinions. We want to nurture those students to become independent and become the best people they can be once they leave education. I mentioned as well that Glean captures 15 seconds before and 15 seconds after. If that isn't enough or it's too much, you can adjust the start and end time, but that 30 seconds, it really helps students hone in on what is actually important rather than capturing, I don't know, 5 minutes of audio, and that's still a lot to kind of go through. So once a student has been through all of those tasks and filled them out, it's going to look a little bit like this. So they've put in all of the context, and still this isn't the easiest for a student to study from. So what we've done is we've created Reading View, and this is really cool. It essentially creates a presentation for the student based on the notes that they've made and the PowerPoint slides in chronological order. So instead of going through that flurry at midterms, exams of trying to create study packs for yourselves and flashcards and all that good stuff, you know that you're prepared, you know that it's all set and ready for you to go. From here, you can also copy and paste to a Word document or print it out. This caters for those students that might still be traditional learners that, I don't know, love to highlight things, stick it on the bedroom wall, put a graph in there. It kind of gives them the flexibility to use Glean for how they learn. So just a couple of other features to show you. So we have what's called collections. We want Glean to be an all-encompassing learning tool. We don't want it to just focus on what you can do in class. So for those students that do struggle with executive functioning skills, we've created collections. Collections is a way of tagging and filing your recordings. So maybe create a class that's like Bio 101 or finals. It just helps them jump into whatever they need to at the right time. If it does get to exam time and you're trying to study something really, really, I can't think of the right word, specific, that's the right word, and you've not titled your event, if you type in any keyword into Glean, it's going to bring up the event title where you've used that keyword. But even better, if you've not used it in the event title, it will bring up every single note whether you've used that keyword, that's going to allow you to jump straight in and start your studies. So that is Glean kind of in a nutshell, the process. Just a couple of things to highlight. So we have help documents for students. So students can come in, they can type in any keyword. So for example, how to use Zoom and Glean. If they don't find what they're looking for, we're more than happy to troubleshoot some of your students' queries. We'll get back in touch with them and we'll help them figure out the problems. So that's kind of Glean in a nutshell. We currently work with over 430 institutions in North America. I think that figure's probably changed now over the last few months because of the pandemic. But I wanted to highlight one of our quotes from one of the institutions we work really closely with. We've really focused on accessibility and students with barriers to learning in this presentation, but there are a lot of students out there as well that do struggle, that maybe English is a second language, and they fall under the TRIO program, or just generally, maybe they go to tutoring. Glean is built with a UDL mindset, so it's definitely applicable to a wider audience of students that maybe just need that extra support but don't qualify for disability services. If you do want to learn more as well, we'd be more than happy to talk to you. As I said, we'd love to give demonstration to your wider teams, just have a chat to you about your situation. So we're going to be posting a link to how you can get in touch with us. But yeah, I hope to hear from some of you soon, and let me know if you have any questions.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much, Megan.
No worries.
Also, everybody, please don't forget, tomorrow at 4 p.m., Glean will be hosting a post-networking event from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. I've posted that in the chat several times, and I've emailed it several times, so you should probably get it. But first, I kind of want to, I also want to, first of all, acknowledge and thank both Megan and Isabel. I believe you guys are what, 6 hours ahead of us?
Yeah, well, it's dark outside.
Okay,
I don't know.
yeah. So thank you so much for that. One of the glaring things about the software that I really like about it is that, as you guys can see, that this can be applied for almost any student can utilize this tool. We actually just received a TRIO Student Support Services program, and we're going to put it together for all of our students. And also, my previous institution, I believe we also offered it to athletics and other different populations that wanted to focus on students learning and getting them to be able to get better notes. We heard from Lyric Porter yesterday, who talked about how difficult it is to have to rely on other students' notes, and this mitigates any issues with that. It allows them to be able to take notes from recordings and to be able to put it in a certain way that is really easy for them to follow. So it's a great product. And I'm glad that Megan used the language of universal design, because that's one thing that we've been talking about. This is something that, like I said, could be used for almost any population. And it's great that you guys already have like TRIO customers and everything. So I'm thoroughly pleased, and really do encourage you guys for tomorrow's event. That event is a free and open event. So if you have individuals at your institution that may hold purchasing power, or they hold the key to the pocketbook, please invite them, because this is. And let me ask you, Megan, have you guys had any contracts or any kind of customers that utilize um, in a broader sense where they basically offer it to um, the general population of the students at either the K-12 or higher ed level?
Yeah, so we have a lot more institutions now, especially since the pandemic, that are opening it up, either at a site-wide level or for the general bracket of student affairs. So English as a second language, trio students, yeah, just generally that bracket of students that don't qualify for disability services, but definitely need that support. But I'd be more than happy to chat to anybody that does have that question and wants to understand how that works practically. Just give me a shout. I'm happy to help.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Any questions? Co-hosts, listen, I'm pro Glean all the way. So,
Love it.
I mean, I could talk about this for a long time, but anybody else want to provide some insight? Or I think Miss Wadley, um, have you used Gleam or you've worked with Sonocent? Are you there, Miss
So,
Wadley?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hi.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit just about your experience with the product?
Yeah, so currently we offer it to our students through disability services, students who self-identify and say they could utilize a note taker service. So that's currently what we use it for. I don't know if we have budget to use it for school-wide, but I wouldn't mind advocating for that because the students really seem to like it so far. And I don't, to be honest, I don't work with the students firsthand. I'm over disability services, but so then the fact that I know that they seem to like it, I think speaks a lot.
Perfect. Great, great, great. Okay,
that's
great, great. Okay. So, Megan, I believe you did Isabel drop the link in the chat, I believe.
yeah,
Yes, she did. She did.
she did.
Um,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, and that link is for a free trial. So I encourage everyone to use it. I want to really thank you for once again taking the time in the middle of the night to present to us. Um, and like I've told everybody that this information will also be available after the conference for you guys to review. And if you I also want to share it with some other individuals who may not be able to make it tomorrow afternoon, we'll also make that available also for you guys.
that's fabulous. It's been a pleasure being here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Okay, thank you. And same to you. Enjoy your evening.
Thank
Uh,
you so much.
take care.
Bye.